The Bearcats need Joe Royer to be him on Saturday.
You are Locked On Bearcats, your daily podcast on the Cincinnati Bearcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Bearcats. My name is Jeff Carr, and I am Cincinnati through and through. I've been a season ticket holder for Bearcats football for 7 years now, and I've also worked in multiple athletic departments and their sports media relations department, and I'm glad that you're alongside me here today. Locked On Bearcats is part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team, your Bearcats, every single day. On today's podcast, Russ Heltman is back, and he's going to help me discuss this Kansas game and how the Bearcats can get that win. We're going to begin with the impact Joe Royer needs to have on this passing attack. We're then going to transition over into the trenches where the Bearcats can't lose this Saturday. And then we'll finish up with our predictions for the outcome of what is going to happen tomorrow in Lawrence on this episode that is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. And joining us again today, we got Russ Heltman, one of the most trusted voices in Clifton. Russ, what you got for me, man?
Glad to be back, Jeff. We got a game to talk about this week, and I can't wait. A big one for the Bearcats and a little bit of an early body clock start for the Kansas Jayhawks. We'll see if that plays any role on Saturday at noon Eastern.
I had a conversation with our friend Derek Johnson over at Locked On Jayhawks, and I had mentioned, I was like, y'all are finishing up your mimosas by the time kickoff's going there in Kansas. So
Right.
it's going to be interesting for them. I'm curious to see how that moves because this is going to be a tough matchup, obviously, the way that Kansas has played so far. I know they got beat up by Missouri, but they looked really good against a bad West Virginia team. And so I look at the experience that they have on the offensive side of the ball, even though the guy that led the team in rushing last week was not their initial starting running back. He replaced an injured guy. There's still a lot to really kind of worry about the Kansas offensive side. So how do the Bearcats respond on the offensive side for themselves? I think that obviously Brendan Sorsby is going to play a huge role. Quarterbacks tend to do that, but Joe Royer really needs to be the guy for this Bearcats offense this week. Would you agree?
I would agree, Jeff, because if they can't access that middle of the field, then this coverage unit out of Kansas is going to be able to continue performing very well. They haven't been super efficient across the board. Kansas ranks just 69th nationally, allowing right around 0 EPA per dropback this season. That's 69th overall, but they rank 16th in PFF coverage grade this season, coming off of a near 90 overall grade in a stellar defensive performance against West Virginia. They got really strong safety play. We'll see if Dye, the starting safety for Kansas, if they can take advantage of him being out of the first half of this game due to some issues there for the Jayhawks secondary member. But Joe Royer, he's got to be like he's got to perform like he did against Bowling Green here and not like he did against Nebraska in this game for Cincinnati to have a realistic strong fighting chance to win. I don't think Joe Royer necessarily has to play great for them to win this football game. You could maybe get some better performances from guys like Jeff Caldwell and Caleb Goody across the wide receiver room. But with Gavin Grover also on the mend right now dealing with an injury, it's really Joe Royer's room in full for him to take control of this tight end position. And if they don't get good blocking from him and they don't have awesome blocking from the other side and Patrick Gerd, then this tight end spot could be the death knell for this game. So I'm with you. I think Joe Royer is a really, really important factor in this matchup. And he's a guy that played really, really bad against Nebraska. 48 overall PFF grade, had just a 46.2 passing grade, and then followed that up with a complete bounce back, 2 catches over 100 yards against Bowling Green the following week. But again, only 2 catches. Can Cincinnati find a way to consistently get back to feeding Joe Royer ever since it's been almost a calendar year since they consistently were able to get him 10, 11, 12 targets and feed him succinctly? They started bracketing him late in the year last year, and that's continued from teams this year. Can Joe Royer get open in the middle of the field? It's going to be a big factor against this Kansas defense that is not necessarily super efficient but they haven't given up a ton of big plays, and they have not really given up that massive, brutal blow to a tight end like Joe Royer. So we'll see if Cincinnati can tap into that this week and try to avoid the turnover mistakes. This is going to be so big, Jeff. If Joe Royer puts the ball on the ground here, that could be the entire difference in the game. Kansas enters this matchup 27th nationally with a +3 turnover margin. Cincinnati minus on the turnover margin. They forced just 1 turnover this season, and they are 107th nationally in the national rankings for turnover margin. That's a major something's got to give, and Cincinnati can't let it give way to the lower ranking that they're sitting at.
I definitely think that starts with the guys up front. We'll definitely get into them here in a few minutes, but kind of going back to the Royer of it all, Nebraska's where I fall back on, because I kind of feel like, yeah, he should have dominated against Bowling Green. He had 2 really good catches, and he should have dominated against Northwestern State. So the one game where you need him to be the best player, at least skill position wise, on your team, he kind of fell back. He was kind of a non-factor. And so part of that, it makes me think that it was early on execution that he lacked. And so then the game plan steered away from him. But at the same time, I feel like, is there ability here for them to like sort of force feed him? Or is that even a reliable strategy for a guy like Joe Royer?
I don't think so, just because he's not a guy that's necessarily going to be creating a ton of instant separation at the first and second level of the field. If he was a speed of a Harold Fannin, for example, last year at Bowling Green, then yeah, that's a guy you force feed, as they did last year at Bowling Green. They force fed him to the tune of the most receiving yards in the entire country for any player in the FBS last year. So I think Joe Royer is a step below that athletically. So that's why he doesn't necessarily get those immediate targets, first read, throwing him the football and getting the football to him in space to let him see what he can do. But I would be okay with throwing him the ball and letting him, with his great contested catch ability, go up and get it a couple more times. And we'll see if that happens against Kansas, especially when you're going up against a team in Kansas that is comparable to Nebraska, although Nebraska's pass defense has been just the stuff of legend so far this season. They're number 1 in the country in passing yards allowed. Kansas not that good, but they've been very solid outside of the EPA number that I mentioned. So I don't think you really do that. As Brendan Sorsby has mentioned throughout this whole season, I'm going to feed the guys who are open. I'm going to spread the ball around, and I'm going to get it to the guys judiciously. I'm not necessarily playing favorites. There's not necessarily a target on this team that you got to continuously feed to keep the offense relevant.
Is it something that, because I think about what the passing attack did not do against Nebraska, that if he is not going, then it's much harder for Allen and Goody to get going on the outside, and as they come across the middle and things like that, like does it take away from the passing game if Joe Royer himself is not a big part of it?
Oh yeah, for sure. Just because you don't get that physical middle of the field 5 to 20 yard range ability in this offense, and then it just becomes a lot of outside throws and harder to execute throws around the numbers and near the sideline. So they gotta, like, for example, like he can't go through this game with just 2 catches. He has not had a game this year, Jeff, with 4 catches yet. Even in the game against Bowling Green, still just 2 catches for 104 yards. And then last week, he obviously would have had more than 3 catches if they needed him to. 3 for 23 and 2 touchdowns. So about as efficient as you can get right there, getting into the end zone. But I'm with you. Like, I think for this offense to keep pace with a Kansas team that just put up 41 against West Virginia, is ranked on Parker Fleming's CFB graph analytics metrics as the number 1 EPA per rush offense in the country, and the number 1 EPA, or excuse me, the number 6 EPA per rush offense in the country, and the number 1 EPA per dropback passing game in the country. They're going to need Joe Royer. They're going to need all of these offensive horses to keep pace with a team as sound fundamentally as Kansas has been so far, despite the loss to Missouri. But that wasn't any fault of their offense in a 42-31 defeat.
Right. That was a lot of Kansas defense there. But like you mentioned, I mean, a lot of advanced stuff is really pointing to Kansas offense being a huge problem for the Bearcats on Saturday. It all starts up front, and especially with the Godfather and how things are looking there. We'll dive into why the Bearcats cannot lose in the trenches coming up next. It's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. All right. Kansas played last week. The Bearcats didn't. So looking at the Bearcats' opponent and who we need to watch out for the most, I am looking at their quarterback, Jalon Daniels. Yes, I know he was 12 of 24 with just 50% completion percentage on the day, but he had 2 big-time passes early on in the game that set Kansas up for a nice, easy win. And that's what the Bearcats are really going to have to watch out for on the Kansas offense. They love to run the ball, but Jalon Daniels is capable of the big play. And just like Jalon Daniels delivered for the Jayhawks, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays with DoorDash Streaks. You save every Saturday you order. Stack it all up on a season, and you can save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive and fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period runs through November 18th. Caffeine just got a flavor upgrade. 5-hour energy shots deliver tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2-ounce shot is packed with the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee, plus B vitamins and nutrients with 0 sugar and 0 crashes. What I love most about 5-hour energy is how portable they are. They fit in my pocket. They got big taste, and it's just a little shot. So you can literally take it anywhere and get that boost that you need anytime you need it. Plus, they've got all these amazing flavors. I mean, I have been really into this transfusion flavor that we've talked about here recently. The grape lime ginger flavor is absolutely phenomenal, and it gives you that boost that you need, like I said, without the crash. Enough with boring, flavorless caffeine. It's time to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5-hour energy shots. Get the favorites that you love, or be bold and try something new in-store and online at www.5hourenergy.com or on Amazon today. Thank you for making Locked On Bearcats part of your day. I invite you to make it part of your everyday routine by hitting that subscribe button here on YouTube and on your favorite podcast platform. We are free and available on all platforms. All right, Russ, so we talked about Joe Royer and his value to the offense, but honestly, the entire game really hinges on the trenches. And I think there's a lot of games that you could say that about, but especially this one where I don't think that Kansas has allowed a sack yet. Like there's no sacks against them.
Kansas, no, they have a lot of sack this season.
Oh,
UC has not a lot of sack. UC is the only team in the country that has not a lot of sack this season.
Gotta love that. So the offensive line needs to continue that momentum, but the defensive line especially, and you mentioned the turnover number in the first segment, the fact that the Bearcats are negative for the season, and that's really not been something that they've been able to capitalize on defensively. I think that for Kansas, or at least against this Kansas offense, it starts with Dontay Corleone and the guys up front trying to put some sort of pressure on Jalon Daniels, albeit I know he's pretty good at getting out of that.
Yeah, and I don't think they're going to have Dontay Corleone in this game, Jeff. From what I saw at practice on Tuesday, I would not project Dontay Corleone to play in this game. Maybe he got out there on Wednesday, Thursday, today, and got the requisite, because it's usually 2 practices, if not 1 full, I did everything they asked me to do practice, or you're not playing. That's kind of how it goes in the NFL and college football, and he did not participate in practice on Tuesday. So I would be shocked to see him play on Saturday. Going to be listed as questionable, I imagine, the entire week, but it would be pretty surprising to see him play. But on the flip side, a guy who would be directly matching up his helmet with Dontay Corleone is Daniel Hishaw Jr., the top running back for the Kansas Jayhawks, and he is doubtful right now. So it would be a serious shock to see him play in this game after getting injured against West Virginia. So a little bit of a cancel out there, but I would say if Dontay Corleone indeed does not play like I project him not to, then it's more so of an issue for the Cincinnati Bearcats, because this Kansas Jayhawks offense, as I've mentioned, is pretty pretty good. 6th in EPA per rush this season, 1st in EPA per dropback. And you need Dontay Corleone getting that interior push on Jalon Daniels, in my opinion, to buy your secondary a couple of extra seconds to be able to not have Jalon Daniels with his eyes downfield and ready to slice and dice you with his arm. Jalon Daniels, in my opinion, has just performed at a little bit higher level and is a kind of a similar playing style type of prospect as Brendan Sorsby. So when you look at Jalon Daniels this year, 12 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, he has just been hyper efficient, one of the top 20 marks in the entire country when it comes to ESPN QBR, which I'll pull up here in just a second. But overall, when we look at the Bearcats defensive line against this Kansas Jayhawks offensive line, it's going to be very difficult, especially if they don't have Dontay Corleone in the fold, to be able to get consistent pressure on Jalon Daniels and make him make mistakes. They have not made many mistakes this year, as I've mentioned, being a top 30 team in the country and turnover differential. And Jalon Daniels has just been lights out. 82.6 QBR, 82.5, excuse me. That ranks 14th nationally among all quarterbacks. 6 foot, 220 pounds, probably a 4.5, 4.6 40. Guy's got wheels, so he can get out of the pocket and cause some problems for that star position of Cincinnati if they are not keying in on him in the backfield as a spy. They just bring so many different issues as an offense that it's going to be very difficult for this Bearcats team to keep them at bay, I would say, on that side of the ball. And when you look at just the matchup in general, I mean, EPA per dropback, Cincinnati's defense has not been up to par. Jeff, 102nd nationally in EPA per dropback allowed, going up against the #1 EPA per dropback offense, led by Jalon Daniels. So a tough matchup to swallow there for the Cincinnati Bearcats, who have not given up a ton of yards through the air this year. We obviously know that. They haven't given up a ton of big plays through the air, but if they let Jalon Daniels throw for 80% completion like they have close to it with Drew Pine at Bowling Green and Dylan Raiola of Nebraska, the only 2 real quarterbacks they played this season, then it's going to be a long day for the defense, and they're going to be out on that field for another 35 to 40 plus minutes like they have the entire season. It was fine to dominate or to get dominated in time of possession against Northwestern State because you were scoring in like less than 2 minutes every time you touched the football.
Right.
But I don't see that happening at that rate this time around, and you can't let your defense be out there for another 20, 30 more snaps than your offense is out there and consistently think you're going to do that week in, week out and win in this league. So they got to find a way to be more balanced and give their defense a little bit of a breather. Can't just keep everything in front of you and let Jalon Daniels dink and dunk down the field. I'm anticipating some more blitzes here. I'm anticipating some more risk from Tyson Veit to try to give them some better chances at those vaunted turnovers that, in my opinion, they're going to need 2 of to win this football game.
You read my mind a little bit because I was thinking, I'm like, this is going to have to be something where Tyson Veit really opens up the playbook, because I think we're going to, especially without Dontay Corleone, they're going to have to use the next level, somebody from the linebacking.
Which is not confirmed, but
right.
I would be shocked if he played. We'll see.
Right.
Give him that extra week, and I would be shocked if he played this week as we sit here today. And on top of that, I would be shocked if he doesn't play next week against ISU, because from what I saw at practice, he's moving around pretty well on that ankle. It's just he did not do much of any actual practice reps with the team.
Would you say, though, even if he did play, even with a limited practice participation, it's probably 50% or less of snaps? Yeah.
That's a good point. If he does play, just from what we've seen leading up to this week, I would be completely shocked if it's I'll go in and find what his snaps have been so far through 2 games of live action. But yeah, it's not going to be a normal 45 snaps for Dontay Corleone. I'd say probably closer to 15, 20 if he's out there.
It feels like, I feel like the first couple of weeks I've seen him less and less. And so I kind of wonder if even if he does play, he's going to be on a very conservative pitch count. So with that, it's going to be
40 snaps against Nebraska and just 10 against Bowling Green. Obviously got hurt in the Bowling Green game. So I would be shocked if he's near 40 in this game.
Yeah, and I think that's going to put a lot of pressure on this linebacking core, on this defensive back core, not just because of the coverage that they'll have to provide, but somebody going to need to be blitzing, because I've not seen anybody else, as much as there is talent on this defensive line. Nobody else has really stepped up when Dontay Corleone has been off the field, at least on a consistent basis. And so that's really going to be the big challenge here against an offensive line that just, it really limits things. And I think that they did a great job on the running side of things too. The Kansas offensive line did.
And Kansas is a great pass blocking team as well. To highlight them, they've allowed only 3 sacks to Cincinnati 0 this year. So still pretty good.
Yeah, it's going to be stingy up front there for them. That's going to be interesting, because with LaShawn Williams, I mean, dude stepped in for the and I'm blanking on the guy's name that you mentioned.
Jr.
Hinshaw,
yeah.
He stepped in for him, and he ran 19 carries for 129 yards. So he
actually took over the top rushing mark total yards for the season with that game too. So he's no slouch.
He's good, and the offensive line is good. We're going to need to see somebody step up, not named Dontay Corleone, regardless of if he does end up playing in this game, because it doesn't feel like he's going to be the main focal point of the group up front. But I know this. We've talked a lot about this, that, and the other. So we'll give you our predictions on what's going to happen tomorrow coming up next. This episode is brought to you by Mazda's Moving the Game Forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's all about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, they move culture, and they keep moving the game forward. And the Bearcats offensive line has been moving the game forward all year long. Nobody's touched Brendan Sorsby, and it's because of the big guys up front. This Bearcats offensive line is looking much improved from last year, and they look like a unit we can trust on this team, even though they've played some lesser opponents. But as we head into Big 12 play, man, this Bearcats offensive line is what is going to be moving the game forward for UC. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to every Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. I encourage you to keep the conversation going with me and with Russ after this episode is over. You can follow me on Twitter and TikTok at Jeff Carr with 3 Fs, and you can follow Russ over on Twitter at Russ Heltman 11. The number 11 there after his name, all no underscores or anything there. And then you can also follow the show at LO_Bearcats on Twitter, and Locked On Bearcats, all one word, on Instagram and TikTok. Lots of social medias. Gotta make sure you're on all of them these days. All right, so we are less than, by the time this gets out to everybody, we are just a little over 24 hours away from kickoff, and it feels like this is the kind of game that the season can really take an upward trend, or it can kind of fork and go the other way. And so for that reason, I feel like they need a win. Despite being the underdog here, this kind of feels like the kind of game that they absolutely have to win. Are they going to do that? Is that going to be something that you see them doing, Russ?
I don't put as much importance on this one as you compared to next week, especially if they do lose this game. I think you go into next week 2-2, you come out of that one 3-2, you're feeling a lot different than you're going to be coming out of 2-3 and having only beaten teams outside the top 100 of S&P Plus nationally. So I'm especially being home next week. It's like, all right, got to be able to get up for this one. It's already sold out. The fan base is going to be ready. They're going to be probably the most ready to support this team all season, given how they have landed in the back half of season. So I'm going to put more stock in the next week a little bit, but this one's super important, and you can really pick up some momentum if they do what I don't think they're going to do, which is win the football game. I'm going a little bit higher scoring than my preseason prediction. I had Kansas winning this one 27-24. Give me 10 more points on either side for this one. I think it's going to be a barn burner. I think they're going to be moving the football up and down the field. And I think that Cincinnati defense is just going to make a few too many mistakes, not haul in enough turnovers in this one to win 3-1 or 2-0 on the margin, and give Cincinnati's offense those requisite added possessions that I think they're going to need against an offense as good as Kansas, led by a Jalon Daniels who's healthy, happy, thriving, and a guy that Cincinnati did not face last year in a 49-16, or 2 years ago, I forget when that was, but a 49-16 drubbing the last time they faced Kansas. It didn't even involve any Jalon Daniels because he was hurt. So give me the Jayhawks 37-34. Really fun game, and the second consecutive time Cincinnati covers as an underdog this season, but does not win.
You know, they say that good teams win, great teams cover. So I kind of like that.
I hate that saying, honestly. I really do. I don't understand how.
I know. I don't understand it either. Like, if
nothing but you, Jeff, cover, obviously, but like,
no. Yeah.
I don't understand it.
No, I'm with you because it's like, okay, I think it's just, I think somebody who bet on a lot of underdogs.
I get it if it's the favorite. Like, if the favorite is covering all the time, then that's very impressive. But it, like, an underdog just covering and still losing, no, I don't
like, who cares about that? Right, exactly. I find it intriguing because I'm the opposite. I think that there's some more defensive mentality to this game, and I think they take the under on it.
57.5, I think we're sitting at right now.
57.5. I'm having a hard time predicting that they win. I think if you ask me to really, if I was going to put some money, I'd say they cover under 24-20. Kansas gets the win in this one, because I think what's going to happen is there's going to be a couple of plays that Jalon Daniels makes. There's going to be a couple of plays that Brendan Sorsby makes, but it's going to be who controls the clock more. And the Bearcats just haven't done that yet. And I think that Kansas,
to that point, Jeff, numbers behind that right here. Cincinnati ranks this season 120th in field position and 44th in quality drive rate. They just have not really taken advantage of dominating possession and dominating field position at all this year, compared to a Kansas defense that's fourth nationally in field position this year. So that plays into that time of possession factor, which I believe Cincinnati is still in the bottom 5 nationally in total time of possession, because they didn't control the ball really at all against Northwestern State.
And I know that you would kind of put the qualifier on that and say, well, yeah, it's hard to control the clock against a Northwestern State team that doesn't cover or tackle, and so you just score in 25 seconds. But at the same time, like, I think that there's something to the confidence and the big play mentality. But when those aren't there, what is your methodical game? And we just haven't seen that. We haven't seen a methodical game from this Bearcats offense yet. It would be a surprise if it shows up here. It wouldn't be a shock, but it would be a surprise. And so it's hard to bet on surprises for me. So I'm saying that I think that they cover, but I think it's low scoring, because I think that we see a lot of rushing, a little bit from Jalon Daniels, a lot from LaShawn Williams on the Kansas side of this. But I do find this intriguing because I think that they can get a turnover or two, that what keeps this game, what keeps it close and what keeps it low scoring. But like you mentioned, I just don't know if they can capitalize on those turnovers. I think it might be one of those annoying things where they win the turnover battle, but they don't get those points off turnovers that they need.
Yeah, and maybe they do. I mean, when you look at the way they've performed in the red zone so far this year, much, much better than they have in the first 2 years under Scott Satterfield. They've been more explosive this year. So there are those underlying kind of aspects of this offense that make you think that they could take better advantage of some turnovers when they do come their way in conference play. But we got to see it first. When we look at Power 4 red zone offenses so far this year, Jeff, this is from True Media. Tom Fornelli posting this on X. Cincinnati is second, I would say the second most efficient red zone offense in the country when you factor in red zone drive rate and points per red zone trip, right up there with Washington, Texas A&M, and Arkansas, also with Utah as well. Those are some pretty good names to be grouped with.
Let's close out on this. If we are both wrong and the Bearcats win, who is the MVP?
It's Brendan Sorsby. I think it's Brendan Sorsby. For me, Brendan Sorsby, if he passes like he did in the last 2 games and is a complete 180 from what he did against Nebraska, then it's there. It is there for him to take advantage of. Like I mentioned, Kansas's passing defense 69th nationally in EPA per dropback. They're not super, super daunting on that front. And maybe the chemistry has blossomed enough between him and his receivers to be able to take full control of any mistakes from this Kansas Jayhawks secondary and just be more. Can he be more accurate? Can he be as accurate as he was in the first or in the second 2 games of the season? and not as less accurate as he was or inaccurate as he was in the Nebraska game. He's had great protection all 3 games, but he just didn't hit his marks with no pressure in his face and clean pockets against Nebraska. I know Brendan Sorsby. I'm confident that he will be much better in this game. Will he be good enough to win? I'm obviously not picking him to be good enough to win, but that's why they roll the balls out. We'll see who's right. We got a heads up matchup right here on the show between Jeff's pick and my pick. We'll see what the cards lay out when we get returned next Thursday.
I'm very intrigued by that, and I think for that reason, and I'll try to go a different way with my if we're wrong and they win, my MVP will be the one thing that you can't predict. It's going to be a turnover for a touchdown. It's going to be Matthew McDoom's going to take one back to the house, and so then I will say that he will be the reason that we will be wrong.
Oh, if Matthew McDoom has a pick 6, then yes, he's the obvious MVP for sure. It's
So
like Isaiah Rodgers against the Bengals. That dude just basically took the game by himself last week from Minnesota. It would be similar.
Don't get me started about that Bengals game. Let me tell you,
Moving
we
on.
need Bearcats football right now because the other football team, they are frustrating. But that is where we will end today's podcast. Thanks again for checking out today's Locked On Bearcats. I invite you to make it part of your everyday routine because, you subscribe and like and comment and do all of the things. Help us grow this Bearcats community for other Bearcats fans to easily find. Now, make sure you check out the Fire TV College Football Kickoff. Got another big moment here on Locked On with Drake Toll from Locked On Big 12 hosting, Gary Patterson, 2-time AP Coach of the Year, and former college star Jesse Hawley join the cast of Locked On's local hosts to bring you the College Football Kickoff show. Kicks off every Thursday on the Fire TV app. Make sure you go check that out. But thanks again for checking us out here today. We'll be back after the game, hopefully talking about our predictions being very wrong about the Bearcats maybe beating Kansas. We'll see you then. There's always maybe in Cincinnati. Always maybe.